Have you observed how increasingly diverted we have become during these times? You reach for your phone to address a notification, and prior to realizing it, 30 minutes have elapsed, scrolling through your feed. You settle down to study, and your consciousness wanders to 1,000 different destinations. You access your laptop to function and conclude by watching arbitrary videos on YouTube. If this occurs to you, it doesn't signify you possess ADHD or any other condition. In actuality, it's considerably more common than you might anticipate. Currently, we inhabit a world so saturated with stimuli that it's challenging to concentrate on a singular responsibility. There's perpetually a notification, a video, a melody, a news item, and it steals our attention. Our concentration disappears comparable to water leaking from a compromised container. However, the habit of concentrating on more than one responsibility simultaneously wasn't always a negative attribute. Our predecessors necessitated constantly scanning their surroundings for dangers. This fragmented attention maintained our survival. But today, it's dismantling us from within. According to researchers at the University of California, it requires a person an average of 23 minutes to recover full concentration following a singular interruption. 23 minutes. Now, multiply that by the quantity of occasions you fracture your attention by consulting your phone, engaging in another responsibility, activating music, or anything otherwise. But what if there existed a method to manipulate that? To condition your brain to disregard distractions and immerse itself so profoundly in a responsibility that the world surrounding you simply vanishes. This technique exists, and it's not some innovative method created by a digital marketing consultant. This technique originates from the Zen monasteries of Japan, and its designation is Ichigyo Zammai. Ichigyo Zammai is the concept of engaging in one activity at a time with complete attention. It's considerably present in Japanese Zen Buddhism, and that's what we'll be addressing today. Before we proceed to the video, I desire to acknowledge the new channel members for their support. I additionally desire to acknowledge each and every one of you who are approving the videos, responding, and distributing the content. You constitute a very significant component of this channel's history. Thank you enormously. Genuinely, now respond to me in the comments. What constitutes your greatest distraction currently? Your cellular device, social media, your own consciousness? Comment beneath. Returning to the video. Chapter 1. The Narrative of Jake. Jake Morrison was 16 years old when he recognized he was losing the competition of existence. He wasn't a deficient student, quite the contrary. He even comprehended mathematics, physics, and programming. The complication was that Jake couldn't concentrate. He'd settle down to study, and several minutes subsequently, he'd already be consulting Instagram. He'd access his calculus book and commence contemplating how extraordinary it would be to function at Google. He'd observe a video lesson and suspend halfway through to verify the outcome of a game. And observe, Jake possessed a dream, one of those substantial, terrifying, nearly impossible dreams. He desired to gain admission to MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, one of the most competitive universities on the planet, the location where geniuses are cultivated. But Jake possessed a complication. His grades weren't even proximate to what was necessitated. While other students consistently achieved elevated marks, Jake resided in that intermediate zone. A C here, a B there, adequate to pass but insufficient to dream of MIT. And his companions, they enjoyed fabricating jokes regarding Jake. Jake, companion, you desire to study software engineering at MIT and you can't even achieve a B in mathematics, man? You're going to conclude up flipping burgers at McDonald's. They laughed. They believed it was amusing. But Jake experienced every utterance comparable to a strike to the stomach. And the most unfortunate component is that his parents were additionally pressuring him, not in a malicious manner. They simply desired to observe their son attempt harder. Jake, you possess potential, but you necessitate ceasing the distraction. You need to take this seriously. And Jake comprehended this. He understood he possessed potential. The complication was that he couldn't access that potential because whenever he settled down to study, his consciousness sabotaged him. You recognize that moment when you should be accomplishing something consequential, but your brain prefers to imagine forthcoming scenarios. Jake spent hours daydreaming. He imagined his graduation ceremony at MIT. He imagined his initial day of functioning as a programmer. He imagined his companions apologizing for doubting him. But in the interim, the mathematics book remained sealed. The physics assignment remained vacant. And the dream remained distant. Until one day following yet another reduced grade on a calculus examination, Jake experienced a breakdown. He was fatigued of being mediocre, fatigued of disappointing his parents, fatigued of hearing his companions' jokes. But instead of confining himself in his room and surrendering, Jake accomplished something different. He determined to request assistance. Chapter 2. The Encounter with the Teacher. The subsequent day, Jake proceeded to encounter Mr. Tanaka. Mr. Tanaka was the school's mathematics instructor, a gentleman of Japanese origin in his 50s, perpetua. Calm, perpetually centered. He possessed the variety of presence that conveyed tranquility. While other instructors shouted to maintain order within the classroom, Mr. Tanaka simply observed, and everyone fell silent. Jake knocked on the door of the teacher's lounge at the conclusion of the day. "Mr. Tanaka, may I communicate with you for a moment?" The professor looked upward, removed his reading spectacles, and gestured for Jake to enter. "Certainly, Jake. Settle down. What transpired?" Jake inhaled deeply. "Sir, I don't comprehend what to accomplish. I genuinely desire to improve my grades. I desire to be a software engineer, but I can't concentrate. I settle down to study, and my consciousness perpetually leaps from one location to another. I'm distracted perpetually, and subsequently my grades don't improve, and subsequently I become trapped in this cycle." Mr. Tanaka remained silent for several seconds. Subsequently, he smiled. It wasn't a smile of compassion. It was the smile of somebody recognizing something familiar. "Jake, may I pose you a question? When you settle down to study, how many tabs do you leave accessible on your computer?" Jake contemplated for a moment. "I don't comprehend. Perhaps 10. And your cellular device? Where do you maintain it? On the side with notifications activated? And do you typically study while contemplating other matters simultaneously, comparable to planning what you're going to accomplish next, or recollecting something that transpired previously?" Jake blinked. "How do you comprehend?" Mr. Tanaka smiled. "Because I was precisely comparable when I was your age." Jake's eyes widened. "Genuinely? Genuinely? I developed in Japan, and when I was young, I additionally experienced difficulty concentrating. My consciousness was perpetually wandering until my grandfather instructed me in something that completely altered my existence." Jake leaned forward, intrigued. "What was it?" The instructor documented something on a piece of paper and transferred it to Jake. "Ichigyo Zammai." Jake observed the paper, confused. Ichigyo Zammai. It's a concept originating from Zen Buddhism. It literally signifies concentration on a singular action. It's the practice of engaging in one activity at a time with total attention, as though you and the action constituted one. Jake frowned. Comparable to simply concentrating on one matter, it's not simply about concentrating, Jake. It's about becoming the activity you're engaging in. When you're studying mathematics, you're not Jake studying mathematics. You are mathematics. There exists no separation. There exists no you observing the responsibility from the exterior. You immerse yourself completely. Jake still appeared confused. Mr. Tanaka observed and continued. "Allow me to illustrate it another manner. Have you ever commenced a video game and subsequently recognized 3 hours had elapsed?" Affirmative. This perpetually transpires. So you entered a state of flow. You were so immersed that you lost awareness of duration. Ichigyo Zammai is learning to intentionally enter this state in any activity. Jake experienced a chill descending his spine. That made sense. And does it function scientifically? Mr. Tanaka smiled. Affirmative, certainly. Currently, neuroscience designates this mindfulness or flow state. There exist dozens of studies demonstrating that when you practice concentrated attention, you alter the structure of your brain. It amplifies the density of the prefrontal cortex, which constitutes the region responsible for governing attention. He accessed a drawer and extracted several printed articles. Observe. I possess some materials here. Articles that combine Ichigyo Zammai with behavioral neuroscience techniques. Convey them home, study them, apply them, and communicate. To me, what transpires? Jake acquired the papers, his hands trembling. He couldn't illustrate it, but something within him communicated that this would alter everything. Thank you, Mr. Tanaka. Genuinely, thank you enormously. The instructor positioned his hand on Jake's shoulder. Jake, you possess what it necessitates. You simply necessitate learning how to concentrate your attention. And when you learn that, nothing will obstruct you. Chapter 3. Applying Ichigyo Zammai. That evening, Jake didn't slumber considerably. He remained awake late studying the articles that Mr. Tanaka had provided him. And the more he studied, the more everything made sense. One of the articles discussed how our brain functions. how with every distraction, every notification, every alteration of responsibility, our brain necessitates expending energy to reset and refocus. And the more you engage in this, the more you condition your brain to be distracted. Another article illustrated the Pomodoro technique combined with Ichigyo Zammai. Segments of several minutes of total concentration followed by 5 or 10 minutes of conscious pause. No consulting your cellular device during the interruption. No consulting social media, simply breathing, stretching, consuming water, being present. Another article addressed choice architecture. Fundamentally, you modify your surroundings to render distractions impossible. Cellular device in another room, notifications deactivated, solely one tab accessible, solely one responsibility at a time. He discovered that Ichigyo Zammai concerns completely immersing yourself in the activity you are engaging in presently without dividing your consciousness. It's not simply engaging in one activity at a time in the practical sense. It's a total unification between you and the action. When you are sweeping the floor, you are the act of sweeping. When you are consuming sustenance, you are the act of consuming. Zen monks apply this to everything from mundane responsibilities comparable to washing dishes to formal meditation. There exists a celebrated Zen declaration that illustrates this. When I consume, I consume. When I slumber, I slumber. It appears obvious. But how many occasions do we consume while contemplating functioning or slumber while dwelling on complications? Our contemporary culture values engaging in 1,000 activities simultaneously. Ichigyo Zammai constitutes the radical opposite of that. The concept is that when you fragment your attention, you're not genuinely present in any of the activities. You become superficial in everything. In that perspective, when distraction materializes, and it will materialize, the practitioner simply acknowledges, "My consciousness wandered," and gently returns to the current activity. No guilt, no frustration. It's a perpetual practice of returning the consciousness. After comprehending all of this, Jake recognized something consequential. He wasn't feeble or idle. He simply had never learned how to utilize his attention correctly, and subsequently he determined from that day onward everything would alter. The subsequent Monday, Jake arrived home from school and accomplished something he had never accomplished previously. He established a ritual. He positioned his cellular device in a drawer in another room. He deactivated all computer notifications. He sealed all browser tabs, leaving solely one accessible with his study material. He established a 25-minute timer, and he inhaled 3 profound breaths. Subsequently, he commenced, and the initial 5 minutes were dreadful. His consciousness was screaming, "Consult your phone, verify if anybody communicated with you, rapidly access YouTube." But Jake recollected what he had studied. When distraction materializes, you don't combat it. You simply observe. My consciousness desires to wander and gently return your attention. He accomplished that approximately 10 times within the initial 25 minutes. However, in the second 25-minute segment, distractions diminished. In the third, he entered a state of concentration he had never experienced previously. When the timer activated, Jake observed the clock and couldn't believe it. 75 minutes had elapsed, and he had accomplished more progress in 1 hour than he typically accomplished in an entire week. He experienced a surge of energy, of power. For the initial time in an extended duration, he experienced he was in control. In the subsequent days, Jake sustained the ritual. Every day upon arriving home, the identical process. Cellular device repositioned, surroundings prepared, breathing, total concentration. And he progressed even further. He applied Ichigyo Zammai to everything. When he consumed sustenance, he concentrated on the act of consuming. He didn't observe videos while consuming. When he communicated with somebody, he was totally present. When he traversed to school, he paid attention to the sounds, the colors, the movement. He recognized he'd inhabited his entire existence on autopilot. And now what? Now he was awakened. His companions observed the alteration. "Jake, man, you don't associate with us anymore. Is everything acceptable?" Jake smiled. "Everything is exceptional. I'm simply concentrated on something more substantial presently." They didn't comprehend, but Jake didn't care because for the initial time, he was constructing the future he desired instead of simply dreaming regarding it. And subsequently arrived the initial mathematics examination following this transformation. Jake settled down, observed the questions, and entered the state. Ichigyo Zammai. He wasn't Jake undertaking the examination. He was mathematics resolving itself through him. When the professor returned the examinations the subsequent week, Jake observed the paper and froze. Jake had achieved an A. He had never received such an elevated grade throughout his existence. Mr. Tanaka observed him from across the room and smiled, and Jake comprehended. This was simply the commencement. Chapter 4. The Ascent from High School to MIT. The subsequent months constituted a roller coaster. Jake continued practicing Ichigyo Zammai every day. His grades commenced rising consistently. Grade A in physics, Grade A in chemistry, Grade A in programming. His parents were in shock. "Jake, what transpired to you?" "I simply learned how to concentrate, Mom." But that wasn't everything. Jake had learned something considerably deeper. He had learned that discipline isn't concerned with willpower. It's concerned with systems. It's concerned with establishing an environment and a routine that render it impossible to fail. He had learned that distraction isn't the adversary. Distraction is simply an indication that your consciousness is fatigued or bored or frightened. And when you comprehend that, you cease combating and commence functioning with your brain, not against it. At the conclusion of the year, Jake applied to MIT. His companions still mocked him. "Companion, you've improved, but MIT, that's extraordinary. Do you comprehend how many brilliant individuals get rejected every year?" Jake simply smiled. "I comprehend, but I additionally comprehend I'll accomplish my utmost. And the remainder constitutes beyond my control." He applied the identical philosophy to examination preparation, SATs, essays, programming undertakings, everything in its own duration with complete attention. And subsequently, 6 months later, in the midst of an ordinary afternoon, Jake received an electronic communication. "Congratulations, you have been admitted to MIT." He studied the sentence 3 times prior to believing it. Subsequently, he screamed. He screamed so loudly that his parents came rushing into the room. "I succeeded. I gained admission to MIT." His mother commenced crying. His father embraced him tightly. And Jake? Jake experienced profound gratitude, not exclusively for the acceptance, but for having learned something that extended beyond any educational institution. He had learned to master his attention, and whoever masters their attention, masters their existence. Chapter 5. Beyond MIT. The journey continues. Gaining admission to MIT was extraordinary, but Jake soon recognized something. Being there wasn't sufficient. The magnitude of demand, the quantity of work, the competition, it constituted another universe. But Jake possessed an advantage. While other students struggled with distractions, procrastination, and anxiety, Jake possessed Ichigyo Zammai. He sustained the ritual every day prior to studying, the identical process. Clean surroundings, cellular device repositioned, 3 profound breaths, and subsequently total immersion. He applied the technique to everything in programming undertakings, in algorithms courses, in collaborative work. And the instructors commenced observing, "Jake, your attention to detail is impressive. You don't miss anything." Because Jake had comprehended something fundamental. Talent constitutes significance, but attention constitutes power. During his 4 years of education, Jake wasn't the most brilliant student, but he was one of the most consistent. And consistency over extended duration surpasses disorganized genius. He graduated with honors, and shortly thereafter, he secured a position as a junior programmer at a technological corporation. And observe, Jake could have relaxed. He could have contemplated, "I accomplished it, now I can decelerate." But he didn't accomplish that because he had learned something essential. Everything constitutes a process. There exists no finish line. There exists solely the subsequent step. So he applied Ichigyo Zammai to his functioning. Every line of code was composed with complete attention. Every gathering he was 100% present. Every undertaking he immersed himself profoundly. And within 2 years, Jake was promoted to full-stack programmer. 3 years subsequently, he became a senior programmer. At 28, he was a team leader. His colleagues were inquiring, "Jake, what constitutes your secret? How are you so consistent?" And Jake perpetually responded identically, "I'm not more intelligent than you. I've simply learned to eliminate distractions and be present, one activity at a time, total attention." Chapter 6. The Science Behind. But suspend for a moment. You might be contemplating, certainly compelling narrative, but does it genuinely function, or is it simply motivational discourse? Let's proceed to the facts. According to a study published by neuroscientists at Harvard University, the regular practice of mindfulness, which constitutes precisely what Ichigyo Zammai proposes, amplifies the density of gray matter in the prefrontal cortex. This signifies that your brain literally alters structure, the region responsible for planning, impulse management, and concentration becomes more robust. Another study conducted by researchers at Stanford University demonstrated that individuals who practice concentrated attention possess up to a 40% reduction in the activation of the brain's default mode network. This constitutes the network that remains active when your consciousness wanders, when you're contemplating the past or the future, when you become distracted. In other words, the practice of Ichigyo Zammai literally shuts down the distraction center of your brain. And there's more. A neuroscientist possessing years of experience specializing in neuroplasticity communicated in an interview. The human brain is incredibly adaptable. When you consistently condition your attention, you're not simply improving a capability, you're rewiring neural circuits. You're establishing information superhighways where previously there existed solely trails. In other words, every occasion you return your attention when it wanders, you are literally constructing a more robust brain. And observe, this isn't mysticism, it's pure neuroscience. The Pomodoro technique combined with Ichigyo Zammai has been utilized by programmers, writers. Why? Because it functions. When you eliminate distractions from your surroundings, when you function in concentrated time segments, when you return your attention every occasion it wanders, you're accomplishing the equivalent of an exercise for your brain. And precisely as your muscles develop when you lift weights, your attention develops when you condition it. Do you comprehend what constitutes the most extraordinary aspect of Ichigyo Zammai? It's not solely about productivity. It's not solely about accomplishing more within less duration. It's about genuinely inhabiting existence. Contemplate it. How many occasions have you consumed an entire meal and not even recollected the taste? How many occasions have you observed a movie but been consulting your phone simultaneously? How many conversations have you engaged in with individuals you cherish, but your consciousness was elsewhere? We're inhabiting on autopilot. We're permitting existence to elapse while we're distracted. And Ichigyo Zammai, it awakens you. When you learn to be fully present, you not only function more effectively, you inhabit more effectively. Sustenance tastes superior. Conversations possess more depth. Experiences become more enriched. It's almost comparable to stepping outside the matrix and observing the genuine world for the initial time. And there exists a detail that will surprise you. Studies demonstrate that individuals who practice mindfulness report considerably elevated levels of contentment and life satisfaction. Why? Because contentment doesn't originate from simply possessing more things. It originates from being present in what you already possess. Jake learned this and it altered everything. So, where does Jake reside currently? He still functions at the identical corporation. He's still a team leader, but more consequentially, he's a completely different individual from that 16-year-old boy who couldn't concentrate for 5 minutes. Jake instructs Ichigyo Zammai to his team members. He observes the identical outcomes transpiring. Individuals who were previously average now deliver exceptional functioning. Individuals who inhabited beneath pressure now possess mental clarity. And observe, Jake isn't exceptional. He didn't possess an absurdly elevated IQ. He didn't originate from a prosperous family. He didn't possess connections. He solely learned one matter that the majority of individuals never learn: how to direct his attention. And this constitutes the truth nobody communicates to you. Success doesn't originate from possessing more duration. It originates from utilizing the duration you possess more effectively. It's not concerned with possessing more resources. It's concerned with concentrating on the resources you already possess. It's not concerned with being more intelligent. It's concerned with being more present. Because ultimately, your existence is constituted of moments. And if you're not present in your moments, you're not inhabiting your existence. You're simply observing it elapse. If this video resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss forthcoming content. I additionally invite you to engage with the other videos on the channel. I believe their content might assist you as well. And remember, one activity at a time. Complete attention. That's how you alter the game. Be present, proceed with honor, follow the path. Encounter you in the subsequent video.